What's up, everybody? Steven here for Off the Shelf Movie Night to talk to you about physical media, about Blu-rays, about 4Ks, about DVDs, about owning our pieces of art, of our film and our TV, and not just borrowing them through streaming. I've said this before, I'll keep saying it again, because it truly is the only way you're going to actually own a piece of art, a piece of history, a film or a TV series that you love. So if you like talking about this kind of stuff, please hit me up in the comments below. Share your thoughts, share your opinions, let's talk about it. And also, like, subscribe, and share, all that good stuff, because it really helps this channel grow and bring in more people to have this conversation with us. So, I had another plan for my video today, and I'm going to do that plan. I'm going to get to it. But in my previous video, a commenter asked me for a top 10 4Ks of 2020. And, you know, I just got inspired by that comment. I started thinking, wow, I bought so many 4Ks in 2020. What are my top 10 picks? What are my favorite 4Ks? What are the ones that I, for one reason or another, have revisited more than once? Now, this by no means is definitive, because I obviously didn't buy every 4K that came out. A perfect example that I'm going to get to right now, just rip it off like a band-aid, is in January, Joker came out in 4K. My understanding is that 4K is beautiful. I didn't buy it. I don't like the movie. I think the movie plagiarizes a really good classic film too much, and I just have no respect for the film. I do like Joaquin Phoenix's acting chops, his portrayal, really good. But I didn't like it, so I haven't bought it, so it's not on my list. So don't freak out on me, and don't, you know, hit me up and say, yeah, I forgot one. I didn't forget one, I just didn't buy it, so it's not on my list. If you liked it, awesome, you know. I think this should be a judgment-free zone. Everyone can like what they like. You know, as long as we're buying media and collecting, then we're growing the industry and showing them that we still like to spend money on physical product. So enjoy what you enjoy. I didn't pick that one though. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about this. The first one in my list, and these are kind of in order. Yeah, they're in order. They're in order. These top 10s. You know, depending on my mood, you know, in some ways I could probably be turned a little bit in the order, but this is pretty much the order. It's easy to order things as far as just image and audio quality, more easy than, you know, by content, because that really is my mood. But when we're talking about audio and video quality, then it's kind of easier to do it. And I'll get into my you know, perceptions of audio and video quality as we move forward, because it's going to be interesting, because you're going to see some films that, you know, maybe the number 2, number 3, number 4 looks worse than the number 5, number 6, or number 7, but there's a reason it's further up in the list. First of all, this first one is kind of an honorable mention. It's kind of a cheat that it's on the list, but it did come out just a few weeks ago, and I feel it's worth mentioning, and that is It's a Wonderful Life 4K. This came out last year, technically. Well, not technically, it did come out last year in a standard Amory case. It has been reissued this year in a steelbook, which is nice. It does, you know, have internal artwork and stuff. I believe I did do an unboxing of this already. But I mention it because there's more to just 4K than making a good transfer. When some company, when a studio not only does a good transfer, but they take the time to restore a film that is basically almost dust, it deserves recognition. And this one was. This film has not looked good in years. In fact, on home video, I don't think I've ever seen it look good. And after you've watched this movie, there's a great bonus featurette in here, a documentary, showing all the work they went to restore it. They didn't just do a 4K scan of the source. They restored the source first. And that's worth praising. This film right here, this 4K, is as close to seeing this film on a freshly struck print as you'll ever see it. Period. Now, if your art house theater shows a film print, it might not look as crisp and clean as this. It's still really fun to see that print. But this is absolutely beautiful. I recently saw on a discussion board, someone asked why 4K for a black and white movie, because a big piece of 4K is having access to that high dynamic range of color. And yes, it's not in color, so you're not going to get tones of sepia and red pops and that kind of thing, but what you do get are more shades of gray in black and white. And that's important because if someone's wearing a dark suit and they're in the shadows for a shot or a scene, those shades of gray allow you to see the difference between the suit jacket and the shadows. It doesn't disappear. You don't lose that detail. So those kind of things, HDR still makes a difference in black and white. And if it's a scan of a film print, then you still get 4 times the video resolution. So you still get more detail than you had before. So while it was released last year, it just came out, and I have to mention it because there are few instances, and there's 2 more instances that are similar to this in my list, but there are a few instances where a studio goes to so much trouble to restore a film when it's nearly dust, and that deserves praise. So that's it. The next film is the Coen brothers, The Big Lebowski. So this is an interesting film because when this film came out, people did not seem to be too receptive to it. Like it was a very different kind of film for the Coen brothers. It's quirky, it's weird. It's taken some years to develop its sort of fan following. This 4K is very nice. It gives us the higher resolution image, which there are some times where that high resolution image is hilarious. There is a point in this, and I don't want to be too spoilery, but let's just say for one particular reason, the dude, the main character here, gets, wow, sorry if you heard that door slam, that was something else. He gets some ash in his beard, and you get that detail more here than you've ever gotten it before. The HDR makes a difference. This is a very vibrant film overall. It has a lot of sepia tones and a lot of browns and that kind of thing. So when you do see a pop of color, it really stands out. Overall, this is a very nice transfer. Big Lebowski. Now, my next few films, I'm only going to talk about 2 of them, but they're all good. And I question myself why this is so far down in this list. It is the Back to the Future trilogy set. I'm really interested in number 2 and number 3. Now again, don't be freaked out. I'm not talking about best films. I'm not talking about which film is better. I'm talking about the presentation quality of the film. And number 2 and number 3 are just slightly newer than number 1. So I think the source is probably just a little bit newer and more recent. And because of that, we still have a very nice grain structure. Now, a lot of times with 4K, studios will use DNR, and denoise the image, and it kind of reduces the grain, but it also tends to make things real smeary looking and more video than film. I would much prefer seeing grain in the film, but having a nice clean grain structure where it's not moving on screen, it's not dirty, like the dirt has been removed, that kind of thing, and that's what you get here. So the films still have a grain structure to them, but it feels very filmic. Colors are nice and vibrant and beautiful. I would say the HDR in these is subtle, but it does work in regard to, especially in the third one, when they're in the Old West, you get a lot of those sepia tones, and there's a lot of outside sequences where you get the pops of the sun and that kind of thing. It's not as aggressive. Other films, like if you look at Mad Max Fury Road, that kind of thing, Mad Max Fury Road was a 2K upscale, but the HDR is very aggressively applied. It looks beautiful, but sometimes it's good to just dial it back and not keep it, not stylize the image. Make this image more organic and earthy, which was what this was. For a science fiction film, this was a very grounded trilogy in its color palette and look. Each of the 3 films has a different color tone, and the first one in here looks very good too. It does. Don't be fooled. 2 and 3 look slightly better. That is the only reason I'm saying this. Now, this also gets into something that the other 2 films I didn't reference because they don't have as much impact as this one. The Dolby Atmos here Gives us a very solid surround sound mix. The big points in this are the music. When the Huey Lewis and the News music pops in, there's some sequences of LFE, which is a subwoofer use, that pop in here. It's not as aggressive. Again, it's more subtle, but it is effective, and you do get that immersive experience with all three of these films. This is, not only are these three films fantastic, this is a great restoration of the three films, especially 2 and 3, and very much worth your time and money. Beautiful, beautiful set. Back to the Future trilogy, 2 and 3 being the best. Next up, we're going to go with Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. This film, the Dolby Atmos here is not quite as successful, pulling from this mono presentation, but there are some battle scenes that are pretty stellar as far as the surround sound goes. Very immersive once they're actually at war. When they're in boot camp, it's not as immersive, but the dialogue is crisp and it pops and it feels like you're in boot camp with them getting screamed at. Very muted color palette here. So HDR does less, but it should. This is not a movie that was meant to pop. This is supposed to be a movie that is a bit washed out. A lot of olive green and gray and some brown, that kind of thing. And I'm just kind of opening these up. You do get the Blu-ray in there too. Grain structure in this, again, this looks like a film. It looks like a film. It's not DNR to death like a lot of things are. The worst example of DNR that I can point out to you is Terminator 2. If you get the Terminator 2 4K, you've wasted your money. I have it. Wish I didn't, but I did buy it used, and it has the Blu-ray in the box, which is what I'll end up watching the most, because the skin tends to look plasticky and fake and mannequin-esque, and that's when you kind of know, oh, this DNR is a little bit excessive. Anyway, beautiful film, very powerful story told here, and a very filmic experience. Full Metal Jacket. This was on sale during Black Friday for $10, so I would wager you'll find it again for that price. Alright, now we're going to get to a boutique. I don't know what's happening in this studio. There's a lot of door slamming going on. So now we're going to get to a boutique release, and I'm just going to, spoiler warning, tell you that the boutique distributors killed it the most in 4K this year. They have pushed the format further than any other studio. Paramount really does some of the best 4K transfers of any studio, but these companies took it a step further, and we're going to go with Daughters of Darkness. Let me get you a close shot there. I did an unboxing of this and more kind of a review of it in a previous video, and you can see that on the channel there, and I'll try and remember to link it for you. Daughters of Darkness is 70s, early 70s. Again, look at that review, because I went through this a little bit more in depth. But this is a phenomenal release. I know we're not doing bonus features, but this is a packed set with literally everything you could possibly want. This is basically a retelling of Count Dracula. Maybe you would call her Countess Dracula in this story. It tells the story of what it's like to be immortal, and how you get bored, and what you do to people and how you treat people just for your own amusement. But you're talking about a movie that's 50 years old, that has been completely restored, scanned beautifully in 4K. You get HDR10 here, and you get the Dolby Vision, which you've gotten on the others as well. This one is incredible because the pops of color in this just stand out so much. The red lips and the lipstick. And there's something called specular highlights, that you may have heard that term before, and that's pops of brightness and reflection that comes through with HDR. And you can see it on like the female character's lips when she's got the red lipstick on, and just the little reflections in her lips. The level of detail that you get on this release is incredible. It does have a very intense kind of grain to it, so if you're a digital film fan, more modern film fan, it will throw you off at first. But remember, this is an old movie shot on film, so the grain should be there. I I did have one mild complaint in my review early on. There's sort of a lavendery color for a scene, but I'm not so sure that that's not on purpose. It just sort of stood out because it never really happens again in the film. But maybe that's part of the source material. I'm not sure. Stunning, stunning restoration overall, though. This is a different kind of film. I don't want to get into too much spoiler territory, but it has lesbian not undertones. It definitely has, that going on. And the male character, you couldn't make a film like this today. The primary male character, the way he treats his fiancée is pretty terrible. But anyway, if you can sort of immerse yourself into the era of this, when this film was made, nice little ticket or cover there, you will really enjoy it and appreciate it for how beautiful it is and what Blue Underground has done with this presentation. We are, let's see, where are we right now? Alright, so we're going to go with this one. I actually have these out of order. My next one is Flash Gordon. This is Blue Underground's first 4K release. Now this wasn't, not Blue Underground, I'm sorry, Arrow Video. This was not done by Arrow Video though. This was done by Studio Canal, and this is part of a partnership with Studio Canal for Arrow Video to be able to release it. A lot of extras in this. I'm not really interested in that. This is a film from the early 80s, late 70s. Again, look at my review because I'm much more specific on that. Has, again, tons and tons of extras, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for the 4K. So this film was a low-budget film to begin with, made inexpensively, shot on inexpensive film stock, and for the majority of its life, every time I've seen it up to now, it has been blown out. Colors have just been blown out because it was in such rough shape. So Studio Canal took this film, did a new scan, did a new color grade in HDR10 on this, and brought this film back to life. It's very grainy. It may be of the set the grainiest of them all because of the film stock was in such rough shape. But detail levels are incredible. Skin tones look perfect. They look beautiful. Special effects look of the era. Some work, some don't, because this is an inexpensive film, but it's super campy, super silly. Your hero is a football player, and he has to use his football skills to save the world. So get ready. It's supposed to be silly, supposed to be campy. So when the special effects, when the 4K reveals the weaknesses in the special effects, it's okay. It just adds to the fun of it. It's like modern day Ed Wood or something like that. There's a lot of orange and red in this, and they don't blow on the screen. I don't see aliasing issues. Looks beautiful. Detail in Ming the Merciless's costumes is incredible. Dale Arden, the female character, her costumes also are beautiful, and they have some nice specular highlights to them. This is a very, very nice transfer. Now, honestly, there are things, Back to the Future probably looks better than this, but this had to have a whole lot more work put into it for its restoration, and that means a lot to me, that a film this old and this beat up and this out of shape was restored and lovingly brought back to life. The Back to the Future films, like the source material, was stored very nicely. It was obviously older, not as old as this one, but it was a higher budget film to begin with. So it was shot on nicer stock, the quality was better, there were more prints to probably choose from. So this means a lot to have something in this quality. Flash Gordon, very cheesy, campy movie though. Be ready, be ready. This, I don't think you can get this particular set anymore, but I do believe if you buy it now, the way you get it is in this just Amory case. These limited sets are very limited from Arrow Video. Next up on my list is Jaws. This came out in two sets. This came out in a regular Amory box with a book, which, to be honest with you, I kind of wish I had got. I chose to get the steel book, but seeing other people's unboxings of the Amory release with the book makes me want that book. So I probably will double dip this and go pick that one up to have it as well. So there's the inside for you so you can see. I was very fortunate with this Jaws release because after it was the 4K was restored, I had the privilege of seeing it in the theater before seeing this release, and it's stunning. This is again a film from 76. I'm sure you guys can correct me about these dates because I didn't look this stuff up because it's not the core of what this video is about, other than to talk about how old the films are. So it's an older film, so obviously again you're going to see a lot of grain, but the grain structure is smooth, consistent. It's not ever overwhelming. It doesn't crop into the detail like sometimes older films will be so grainy that they kind of make the detail even in a 4K mushy. Not here. This is stunning. This feels like going to the theater. You will know from the opening sequence. If you don't remember the opening sequence of this film, it is a woman at night swimming in the ocean, and the way the moonlight bounces and reflects and pops off of the surface of the water is stunning. And that look is consistent throughout the film. Daylight shots have very beautiful HDR. You get perfect skin tones, and people's beards look the right color, and you can see each strand of hair in their beards because the detail levels are so high. This is a stunning presentation of a very important film. This is the first, I'm sure most of you know this, but this is the first blockbuster ever made. First summer blockbuster right here. And you can kind of see the weaknesses in the shark. You know, obviously he's an animatronic, but there's a lot of stories behind it, and you can see those stories in the extras in this presentation. The struggles that they had with him, and he kind of, you know, you can see it. You can see that the shark is fake here and there. Doesn't matter. Things like the acting and the score, all that stuff make this film still very effective. But the specular highlights in this are my favorite thing. Just incredible. Just the way the moonlight bounces off the water in the night scenes, and the flickering bonfire on the beach with those yellows and brown tones. Stunning. This is a beautiful 4K. Easily could have been my #1 of the year, but it was not, because you're going to see why. Number 2, second favorite film of the year. This is Lucio Fulci's Zombie. You may or may not know this film. Try to get it into the shot there. This is another Blue Underground. Blue Underground crushed it with a handful of 4Ks. There's 2 other 4Ks in their list, or yeah, in their release list that I could have chosen because they're all so good. Fulci's Zombie is important because it is one of the first zombie films ever made, along with Night of the Living Dead. In fact, this was sort of Fulci's answer to Night of the Living Dead. Now, this film is different in that it goes more into sort of the supernatural side, where George Romero's Night of the Living Dead and subsequent films were focused on sort of social commentary and that kind of thing. This is a film I've seen many times over the years, and again, a very old film from the 70s. The prints, the original source material, was beat to death. It usually didn't look that good. Now, Blue Underground did do a very nice Blu-ray release, and they did a good restoration on it, and I believe at that point in time they did a 4K scan. So it was only a matter of time before we got this release, and they applied HDR10 and Dolby Vision to an incredible degree, because there's a huge variety of color in this. There's the beach, there's, you know, sun-bathed sequences, there's browns and greens, and there are pops of red here and there. So this cover right here, let me show that to you again. Can I get that closer to the camera? Is that doable? So this particular zombie, when he appears, it's one of the most epic scenes in the film, and the level of detail on his makeup is incredible, and it holds up even under the scrutiny of 4K. In fact, it looks better than it looked in previous releases. You see all the detail and the gore that is on his face, and that and one particular kill involving an eye make this film a must-see for horror fans. This is better than Jaws, again, because to me, taking a film that was nearly destroyed and restoring it to this level of quality gives it a bump over a newer film. And if it weren't for a company like Blue Underground, we wouldn't have this. You wouldn't see a company like Sony or maybe Universal, maybe, but you wouldn't see this movie get the love that it has gotten from Blue Underground. This presentation is great. There's a nice embossed feel to the slipcover, and they're doing something with their slips. And let me show you one that's not on the list, but almost could have. We talked about this, how the slips are all matching with their 4Ks, so they look amazing on the shelf. Beautiful, beautiful. My second favorite. This is a film, when I talk to people about film history and what 4K can do for an old film, bringing it back to life, that kind of thing. This is one that I pull off the shelf always now. Okay, you guys, let me get a drink here. Whew. All right. Got the Waterloo kick in there. Thank you for staying with me. If you've made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share this out. Let's talk about this kind of stuff. My number one 4K release of 2020 is going to be very difficult for you to buy. This thing, as far as I know, is already out of print in its the form that I have it, but we'll talk about that in a second. And it is the Second Sight Special Edition of Dawn of the Dead. I'm not going to do a full unboxing of this because I did a video 2 videos ago that I went through each little piece of this. Second Sight is a British company. I had to import this from them, and I went through a lot to get it, to be honest with you, because I believe they only did 1,000 copies of this. Now, this is something that I've been asked about before, and I think I say it in my review of this one. 4K is region free, so you can import 4K, not a problem. 4K will play in any player anywhere around the world. The issue that I have with this particular release is the bonus features are all on Blu-ray discs, so that I'm still working on. I'm going to buy a region-free can't talk, we've been going so long here. I'm going to buy a region-free player to deal with that. But Dawn of the Dead is George Romero's follow-up to Night of the Living Dead, second zombie film, and some people may argue with me about it, saying that Night of the Living Dead is his best, but I do believe Dawn of the Dead is his most realized of his zombie films. He's done others, follow-ups to this, that I don't think are nearly as good as this. His social commentary is on point in this release. He shot the film in a mall, and he used that setting to sort of speak his mind on consumerism and that kind of thing. But if you don't agree with him, it's fine, because he never beats you over the head with it. It's just there if you want to see it. You know, it's not... The way social commentary is done today, we get pounded in the face with it. But not here. Here it's just such an integral, like, core part of the story that you don't really have to invest in that side of it. But he had a lot to say, and he does say it. So this is another film that I've never seen look this good. Anchor Bay did a DVD release of this film several years ago that had a lot of these bonus features in it. It was a big box too, like this. I'm starting to crack here. And for the time, they did a good job. But what Second Sight has done with this, given us a new 4K scan, given us a beautifully uncompressed 4K, beautiful surround sound. The Atmos is not amazing because the source material didn't allow for it, but it does sound really good. Dialogue is more clean and crisp than I've ever heard it. The HDR implementation here is okay. You know, it's not overbearing. Pops of gore, reds in particular, pop on this thing, and they look great. Skin tones look better than I've ever seen them look in a Dawn of the Dead release. And I've seen, you know, again, that DVD release and other versions of the film over the years, and they just never looked that good. this is the penultimate version of this film. It really looks like the way I've been lucky enough to see an actual film print, and this looks the way that film looked. The HDR matches. They worked hard to match the look of the original film and not apply some new modern color palette or style to it. They just wanted to bring it back to life. And when you're watching 4K, you should be looking for filmic experiences, and all of these give you filmic experiences. They feel like you are at the cinema, and that is what good 4K should be. So that is my top 10. If you have questions or comments or whatever about any of these releases, please hit me up in the comments. I'm happy to talk more about these. What are your top 10s? What are your favorite 4K purchases of 2020? Share them with me in the comments, and I'd love to have a conversation with you about them. It's been a good year for physical media. It's been an even better year for 4K because we finally get to see 4K really coming to life. So here are my top 10s. Let me just pick this pile up so you can see. There you go. Oh, I bumped the mic there. Sorry about that. There you go. That's the stack. Now, also, I'll just show you. I forgot the zombie. It got put in the wrong stack. But also, here's another stack of everything else that I bought in 4K this year. So it's substantial. I bought a lot. I invested a lot in 4K. I tend to continue to invest in 4K because even done half-assed, it looks better than Blu-ray. Okay? Now, Pan's Labyrinth and Terminator 2 are not even half-assed. They're terribly done. So that's bad examples. But I assume the Beverly Hills Cop will not be an amazing 4K, but it'll be a good 4K. It'll be better than what we have on Blu-ray. And as you know, as a curator, I like to have archival copies of films as best as I can, library quality copies, and 4K is the way to do it. On my list also coming up is the Lord of the Rings box set. I haven't purchased that yet, but I will. So anyway, that brings me to the end of it. I hope you had a good time going through these films with me. I had such a fun time reviewing my 4Ks for the past year and taking a look at what I've bought, and I'm inspired now. I'm going to watch some of these again, hopefully before the end of the year. So that'll bring us to the end. Again, hit me up in the comments. Share with me what you bought. Until next we meet, pull something cool off the shelf. Share it with your friends and family and remind them why physical media is the best way to watch films and TV. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one.